What's up, everybody? Welcome in. We are here for week 9 of Max Marquee matchups. I am excited to get into it. We've got a great one on the slate here. You know, we had to go ahead and dig into this one. Obviously, Chiefs versus Bills. I had to bring somebody back to the channel. Obviously, always happy to have him on. Member of Sam on the Mafia Members podcast. Always happy to talk about the Bills with him, and specifically in this matchup in which we got Patrick Mahomes versus Josh Allen. We're going to get into the matchups. Obviously, going to give our best bets at the end, a little bit of season review, and some trade deadline preview. Ready to dig into it. Let's go ahead and bring Sam on up here. Sam, how you doing today? How's it going, man?
Hey man, I'm good, man. It's it's been a bit of a it's been nice to get nice to get the bye week and kind of
Mhm.
reset and then have the big game against Carolina. So kind of nice to have the tides kind of turning back around, and then we run into the buzzsaw right after that. So
That's the way
it'll
it
be fun.
goes.
It'll be fun.
Absolutely, man. You get to the middle of the season, then you get a little bit of rest, and then you're getting right back to it as far as this is concerned, especially in this year. So a little bit of parallels for both of our teams. Obviously, both of us go through 2 game losing streaks. Ultimately, we have lost 3 games on the season. Chiefs sit third in their division right now, tied for with the Chargers behind the Broncos. Bills 5-2 ultimately sit second in the division behind the New England Patriots, who have gotten off to a good start. Obviously, the Chiefs and Bills have sat here as the powerhouses in the AFC, coming off of AFC Championship games specifically last year, and all the playoff matchups that have preceded it because of these superstar quarterbacks, MVP caliber quarterbacks that have led these franchises to the successes that they have recently. So, obviously, like we've talked about, you guys coming off of that Patriots loss, uneven game against the Falcons that get you guys into the bye week. I had to reevaluate some things, come out, put a drumming on the Panthers, really showed your muscle, specifically in the trenches on both sides of the ball, and now get ready for this marquee matchup. Chiefs right the ship after losing those first 2 games, even dropping the Monday night game that was a little bit uneven. Get right against the Detroit Lions with a convincing win. Next 2 game win streak versus the Raiders and obviously the Commanders on Monday Night Football that have struggled a lot. Question that I got for you as we take a look at where the Bills have gotten to as far as this season is concerned. Talk to me about one major concern that we're here in the middle of the season that you look at, and then one nice surprise that you've come across at.
The main thing is who's the weapon outside of James Cook that we can rely on kind of consistently. Um, we saw Keon Coleman have a good week 1, but then hasn't really done much since then. Or James Cook has really been the only other consistent player, and even with a little bit of a regression this year, it seems like, from Josh Allen. So kind of how we're going to use that everybody eats mentality that we had last year. Um, how do we do that? And yeah, I think for sure that's our biggest concern. And just from kind of a gameplay and like a philosophy wise, we've been getting like off to really bad starts, and that kind of puts us in a hole. Luckily, week 1 against the Ravens, we were able to climb out of it with Josh playing amazing in the fourth quarter. But then it comes to bite you in games like the Patriots and Atlanta, where you're just kind of stuck in the mud a little bit, and there's not enough time left in the game for you to figure it out and win the game. So slow starts are kind of an. We're good at making time adjustments and kind of seeing what the other team is doing against us and adjusting to that. But ideally, you'd like to not put yourself in that position and not be in that hole, and just kind of against Carolina and just roll and just be confident with how you're playing and do what you do best. So I'd say those would be my 2 biggest areas of concern for the Bills. We've only had the 1 game with Ogunjobi and Michael Hoyt back in the lineup, but they looked really good against Carolina. Deion Walker the rookie has been a great surprise for us. Joey Bosa leading the team in sacks is another big one for us. So I think that the play of Ed Oliver, unfortunately out again for looking like the rest of the season, but he's another bright spot for us that has played so far this year. So I'd say that has been a nice surprise for us, because that was a major area of concern, and we spent a lot of draft capital and free agency money in that room. So it's been nice to see that paying off for us.
Yeah, absolutely. That's been one thing that I've looked at the tape on you guys, and you guys are 13th in quarterback pressure rate, but second as far as sack percentage is concerned. You guys have not only been able to get after the quarterback, but also finish those plays when you do get there. Like you mentioned, Deion Walker has been extremely good, a rookie out of Kentucky for the defensive line. Obviously, Ed Oliver was playing exceptional football really before that injury, and unfortunately, that seems like at the very least he's going to be out for the rest of the regular season. From my standpoint. Obviously, the way it started out with the 0-2 was just not what we wanted. I would say the Jaguars game was a little bit of a setback. Had the tough pick six that really turned that game on its head. And ultimately, the way that this team has kind of gone throughout the season, you've seen the offense really pick it up. You talked about some of the slow starts you guys have had, even in a game in which I felt like we were very sluggish on Monday Night Football versus the Commanders. Second half, you come out and really establish, and flex your muscle versus a team that's hurting as far as that is concerned, and be able to pull away there. So I've liked the way in which we've operated, obviously, really since we've gotten Xavier Worthy back. And then we had obviously Rasheed Rice, who we do like to refer to as EGE. I know it's a little bit of a controversy, not having to do anything with the Buffalo Bills. It just happens that we have had a little bit of crossover as far as that is concerned. But having these guys back in the lineup has really improved where our offense is at. And so for us to have had two good performances versus hurting teams, but specifically that performance versus the Lions makes me feel good about it. Is the concern aspect of it, ironically, is the one where you've been surprised. The defensive line. I feel like we have done, like I said, a really good job on offense. I think we have made the proper adjustments in our secondary to feel a little bit better from that standpoint. But defensive line has struggled. George Kalafdis has been largely fine. He's gotten better over the course of the season. Chris Jones has continued to command a lot of double teams, a lot of attention. Not been as elite as Chris Jones normally is, to say the least, as far as our season is concerned. And then we haven't really gotten much out of anybody else. Our second round pick, Omar Norman unfortunately did tear his ACL, so we are going to be without him moving forward as far as that is concerned. We did get Mike Pennell back, which hopefully will improve as far as our run defense, which has been very shaky to say the least. But the pass rush aspect has struggled. And so that's be the big thing for me and my big concern. And it'll roll really into this next question. From your standpoint, where do you feel like this team can maybe try and get better as far as the trade deadline? I feel like it'll be mentioning those weapons as you talked about as far as your major concern.
For me, it's definitely going to be adding a wide receiver. You can look at all the charts and all the different EPs and separations, that and the Bills wide receivers, like a group that's like just
Just
down
sort of
in the
finish that.
bottom right, down in that one quadrant where you don't want to be in, and it's
Gonna
like
be.
all of our guys are down in there,
Mhm.
aside from Khalil Shakir, but we don't use him enough in order for him to be like that effective. So for me, it's going to be getting a true outside wide receiver who's going to create separation, um, kind of take the top off the defense a little bit, to let Keon Coleman work the middle where he's a little bit more comfortable and can use his size, and guys like Shakir can kind of work in that space as well. And forcing defenses to play that too high safety and kind of open things up a little bit for James Cook as well, because right now it's pretty easy to just kind of stack the box against us, even though we do a good job of still we're still effective running the ball, but
Mhm.
we're making it harder on ourselves because we telegraph that that's what we're doing. It's hard to stop it, but we still are telegraphing that we're doing it because that's really all we can do right now. So adding, and I don't think Gabe Davis is the answer, regardless of regardless of how well he did in that
That,
divisional
that,
game a couple
that
years
13
ago.
seconds game just gave us all PTSD when I saw he didn't sign to the active roster, man. I was like, oh, great, this is fun.
Yeah, I don't think it's Gabe Davis. So I think we need to add somebody else. There's all the names out there: Shaheed, Olave, a Waddle out of Miami. Like, I don't think they'll trade him within the division, but any one of those names, I think anybody that we can bring in is just going to make our wide receiver room a little bit better. So that's where I would be targeting for sure.
Yeah, understandably so. And there have been a lot of mentions. You obviously mentioned both guys from the Saints, Olave and Shaheed. I think both of them would may bring a little bit different skill sets, but both very effective for what you guys are looking for to do. Other names have been floated out there. DJ Moore from the Chicago Bears. Maybe they want to move off of him as well. Jacoby Myers from the Raiders. Also, the fact that they are looking to move him. Maybe not the perfect fit for what you guys are looking for, but somebody that at least could bring a little bit of help to that wide receiver room. I know what it's like to have a great quarterback and have a really good offensive line, and then all your wide receivers are down in that run quadrant that you're open in, and you're like, if we could just get a little bit of help there, that would be great.
So we just need one, just need
Just,
one
just
to get into that, that.
Exactly, just a little bit, just to help us out a little bit. So
Yeah,
along those
yeah,
lines, as far as the Chiefs side of it and where that trade deadline talk comes to, it is going to refer back to the concern that I have, and it's the defensive line. And obviously, a lot of people have talked about the running back aspect of it, and I completely understand it would be fun to throw Brees Hall into this offense in the way in which it's already operating. But I do think that the trio that is here, Pacheco unfortunately did have the sprained MCL. I don't expect him to play in this game. We'll get into that in a little bit. But I do think that it's a more of a short term type of thing. Kareem Hunt has been good in his role. Brashard Smith has been good in the role, and we've only really scratched the surface of how to use him specifically. So for right now, I think the running back is a solid enough place. Defensive line really is the place that needs help. And there's a few guys, obviously, both guys in Miami, Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb have been talked about a lot. Jermaine Johnson of the Jets also mentioned. Speaking of the Saints, Carl Granderson also could be a candidate as well. A little bit as far as the defensive line aspect could be mentioned, a guy like a Malik Collins from the Browns, but you just need somebody that could be a second pass rusher to help out when Chris Jones continues to get the amount of attention that he is getting on a consistent basis. Charles Omenihu hasn't necessarily been all that effective. We haven't gotten much out of Ashton Gelati. Mike Dana is Mike Dana at this point. We can't necessarily rely on these guys. We need somebody to really rush the passer and get those quick pressures so that those guys like George Karlaftis can really clean that up on top of what obviously Chris Jones demands in his attention too. So that's the way I'm looking as far as what we need to add at the deadline. Anytime that you have the expectations of Super Bowl or bust as far as both of our franchises with these quarterbacks are concerned, and you lose multiple games in a row, all of a sudden everything is
yeah,
crashing down in
yeah,
that aspect too.
yeah,
Especially when you lose games that like us for week one as far as the Chargers game is concerned, and you guys specifically in that week 4 matchup or week 5 matchup versus the Patriots that ultimately puts you behind the division, then everything is really crashing down
yeah.
because you're not
Yeah.
leading your division like
I
you had.
think I put out multiple tweets saying fire McDermott, fire the defensive coordinator, fire the G. I've been there, I've done that,
Look, I spazzed out on Spags because of the way that some of the defensive line stuff has been handled after that week 1 loss. So I completely understand it. I get it. Sometimes you got to rage tweet through a game and then you take a step back and you're like, okay, we're going to take a
Yeah,
deep breath. It's
yeah,
going to be fine. I promise. Digging into this matchup, obviously, primetime CBS matchup once again, as you expect with Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen being featured here, as they have been for a multitude of occasions. We're going to talk about the side specifically with the Kansas City Chiefs offense going up against this Buffalo Bills defense, and I do want to talk about a little bit for this offense specifically in the way in which it has really, taken off with both Rasheed Rice and specifically Xavier Worthy back into the mix. And the offensive line has been a little bit of shuffle mode. Josh Simmons is going to miss this game again as he's been out, our first round pick. But we paid Jalen Moore specifically to step in at left tackle in case we did not get a left tackle. Fortunately, he's played well. Trey Smith will be back for this game after Mike Caliendo played the last 2 games for us at the right guard position. So good to have our starting lineup intact outside of that left tackle aspect. But you've just seen the way in which Andy Reid has started to mold this offense to the different and varying wide receiver threats that we now finally have. We had waited so long to see Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown, and Rasheed Rice on the same field together. Unfortunately, we've now gotten that. And then we got the early season emergence of Tyquan Thornton that just adds an extra deep threat. So now you have the speed element of the offense, specifically from the wide receiver position. Rasheed Rice brings the intermediate threat, number 1 targets, as we've seen. He's gotten peppered with them since he's been back. Travis Kelce is old reliable, and we saw him almost have 100 yards versus the Commanders on Monday Night Football, and the way in which how he can work the middle of the field as well. And then the run game. The run game has been a nice, kind of impressive surprise. We're had the lowest run stuff rate as far as our offensive line is concerned, not allowing those negative runs to kind of put us behind the chains when we do choose to run it. We've been in positive. I think we were 4th as far as EPA per play is concerned since we've gotten Xavier Worthy back in the run game as well. So being able to add the balance to our team and now having Andy Reid be able to use these different weapons. And then when things don't necessarily work as designed, Patrick Mahomes has still been the best quarterback as far as the second reaction plays in the National Football League to start off this year. So that's why our offense has taken off the way it has since we've gotten these guys back. And I've been really impressed by the way that they did. Now, obviously, this is a really good test for us, specifically along the trenches. offensive line, giving us time to be able to get it to those weapons specifically. And that's where I want to go ahead and throw it over to you. Obviously, I did mention, or you mentioned earlier about Deion Walker specifically, but talk to me about the ways in which you feel like this defense can try and get after the Chiefs offense, and probably starting up front really as far as the trenches are concerned, given some of the things that are in flux and your back end.
Yeah, I mean that's for sure. When we go up against the Chiefs, we know there's not many holes in the Chiefs team like anywhere on the field. But if there is a spot, you always feel like we have the advantage on the D line versus your offensive line. So obviously missing at all is going to be a huge deal for us. But like you said, Deion Walker, Ogunjobi, Michael Hoyt, Joey Bosa, these guys are all going to have to be able to get at Mahomes and get to him quick, because like you said, he can extend a play better than anybody else in the league, and he can make you look stupid as a defender when you think you got him wrapped up for a sack, or you're chasing him to the sidelines and he still is able to throw the ball back to the middle of the field to KELCE for a 40-yard down the field, Um, but one thing that we did do was we drafted Maxwell Harrison, the fastest player in the draft, and I feel like that was a move specifically for this matchup
Mhm.
because of the speed that you guys have. And we needed some guy who can try and limit Xavier Worthy as much as we can, so that we can just kind of have him. Those two guys can just run 100-meter dashes all game. Just let them sprint with each other all game, and we can kind of force Mahomes to do whatever we can do over here. So I think that matchup is going to be really important as to how our new look defense, like our secondary, is all young, fast guys, so that we can hopefully combat some of that speed. So I think that the defensive backs being able to keep up with the pace will allow our pass rushers to get at Mahomes, and hopefully they can do it quick enough that he's not going to be able to escape and make bigger plays.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's interesting. Obviously, you mentioned the Maxwell Harrison aspect of it. Obviously, it felt like when you were watching this matchup in the AFC Championship game, it felt like the Bills, particularly on the back end, were a little bit outmatched from an athleticism standpoint. And that kind of showed up as the game wore on. Obviously, you guys drafted and acquired some guys to make sure that that doesn't happen. And
Yeah.
Maxwell Harrison is going to be a big piece of that with the speed that we could put out there. The one thing I wanted to point out specifically about this matchup, and I'll take it back to that AFC Championship game as well, we came out in that first drive and really used a lot of RPO action. Obviously, we had Joe Tooney at left tackle. We had Mike Eliando at left guard. We weren't necessarily fully confident as far as our offensive line was concerned at that point. So there was a real emphasis on making sure we got the ball out of Patrick Mahomes' hands and on a little bit quicker. I'm wondering, given the fact that obviously you guys have performed so well as far as the defense is concerned, do you see a similar type of mindset for our first 15 specifically from Andy Reid? Or are we getting a little bit more of the traditional under center aspect of it, block it up, make sure we can manipulate a little bit on that second level, not necessarily the emphasis on the quick hitters? Are we trusting our offensive line early on is going to be something that I'll be watching certainly. So let's go ahead and flip to the other side of the ball. Bills offense led by Josh Allen. Obviously, this run game where James Cook got cooking. Cook had over 200 yards on that Panthers defense in that game coming out of the bye week. I want you to talk about, obviously, we saw a little bit uneven performances versus the Patriots versus the Atlanta Falcons on the road there. Talk to me about what you saw differently from those two games, those two losses coming out of the bye week versus that Panthers dominance that you saw on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we're like there's so many similarities between us and you guys. Like this was now what I think. Well, since Josh Allen and McDermott have been together, like they haven't lost coming off of a bye week, and that I feel like that was very similar with Reed and Mahomes
Yeah,
at quarterback
Mahomes.
as well.
Yep.
Um, so we just had a better game plan than we had in those weeks, and I feel like that comes with extra time to prepare. But
Right.
what we did see a lot of was um, it was a lot of 13 formation, a lot of disguising where the run was going to go. So they were we were showing run to the right, kind of, if you will, and so they would that you would see the Carolina defense all kind of shift and come to overload that one side, and then you pull the guard through the opposite side, and it's a outside zone to Cook the other side, and there's nobody around there because we were getting great blocking from Haas and Dawson Knox as well.
Mhm.
and Dion Dawkins is a dog blocking as well. So like those, we were just able to create lines with running lines with just a bit more of a creative approach to the game. So it was refreshing to see that we focused on that, because that's what we weren't like when you're struggling like we were against the Patriots and the Falcons. Just you sit there and you go, just get back to the basics, like just do the little things well, and you'll be all right. So it was nice to see us do that, and kind of figure that aspect of it out. So hopefully that continues for us this week.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of those mixed direction again with the offensive line that you guys have, an athletic offensive line, but also a powerful one, makes it very difficult for defensive lines to match up in front seven specifically to stay gap sound, understand what their assignments are, and then be able to meet the challenge of staying in those gaps when they get tried to get
Yeah.
pushed out of the way,
Yeah.
to say the least. And that's really the big thing was for me. It was, hey, we're going to allow this ground game to lead the way as far as this offense is concerned. Damn the weapons, damn the wide receivers. And we're going to say, hey, we're going to get into some heavy personnel sets. We're going to go ahead and use some jumbo packages. We're going to get these tight ends on the field. We're going to take advantage of what we feel like our real, might and power and upside is as far as what we can do on that standpoint and getting after this Panthers defense. And obviously, it worked to a great effect, to say the least, what ultimately came throughout that game. The one thing I'll say specifically for us now, going on the defensive side and looking at the ways in which this defense, while it's had really good performances, it certainly has had it over the last 3 weeks. I was a little bit concerned coming into the Lions game specifically. I I thought that for a run defense that had struggled a lot, that we were going to give up a lot of yards. And we didn't, which I was surprised to see, to say the least. There was aspects of the ways in which the Lions were trying to get after us that I thought maybe were a little bit too finesse necessarily than try and go straight at us. I was fortunate to see it regardless, but I'll say that much. But this is a different type of matchup than the Lions run game because you have the threat of Josh Allen and everything that is involved in being able to use him specifically in that run game in his legs, which we have obviously seen get after this Chiefs defense in games past, to say the least, obviously. So the ways in which Spags again has kind of adjusted on the back end, he's used a little bit less than Shamari Connor, even though we have gone back to that, and we obviously saw him and Najee Johnson really get victimized, I'll say, in the regular season matchup last year in the Buffalo Bills house, in the ways in which you guys were able to get after him, and Josh Allen had a field day targeting them. I still feel okay about some of the things that we're doing on the back end. Jalen Watson is playing good football. Trent McDuffie has been excellent this year. That's not really my concern. It's really the second level of the linebackers defending the play action pass that has struggled a lot for us. I think that when we bow up and try and stop the run, especially as the game goes on, we seem to get better at it. Sometimes the early scripts and those first two drives, we can look pretty bad, but ultimately we end up getting better over the course of the game. But we got to get better at the play action pass. And a lot of things to the tight ends and the flats have been wide open. Those are points of emphasis for me that I need to see from this Chiefs defense to improve upon, because you guys, obviously, with the ways in which you want to run this this offense, with James Cook, with Josh Allen, with the heavy personnel sets, with the extra offensive line, that's right up your alley and being able to take advantage of that matchup. So that's the thing that I'm going to be watching mostly. Can we get you guys into obvious passing situations, and then being able to get off the field is an entirely different adventure versus Josh Allen,
Yeah,
obviously. But
yeah.
can we at least get to those difficult moments against better matchups, given the fact that you expect to see a little bit more wide receivers than tight ends on the field in those type of downs and distances. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and get to the fun portion of this. As far as your best bet is concerned for this Bills Chiefs matchup, what you got, man?
So I took a quick look. The line for James Cook receiving and yards is 92.5. So I'm going to take the over on that because I didn't game so far this year. I think the most he's going to be is catching the ball out of the backfield, if we can work that into the game plan at all. So I'm going to say he gets the over on the 92.5 total yards.
Yeah, absolutely. So as far as this is concerned, I'll give two. One that I think is pretty good bet to hit. Kareem Hunt rushing yards, and I don't have the exact line on this. The last one I saw was 42.5. I think that he can get at least 50, given the fact that he's going to have the majority of the carries for us, and we have been running the ball well. The other one that I would say to take would be Tyquan Thornton's longest reception. I say that specifically because the attention that's going to be paid to Xavier Worthy, I think you're going to see a lot of Maxwell Harrison on that. I think that obviously a lot of this is going to be concerned about, hey, Rasheed Rice, Travis Kelsey, that intermediate aspect of it. And I think as we talked about a little bit earlier, there are going to be a lot of jabs early on in this game to try and hit one of those knockout punches down the field. And Tyquan has been the guy that's been very good at that aspect. And so I think that that's going to be something to be on the lookout for as far as our best bet is concerned. I'll go ahead and start with my X factor and my game pick, and I'll let you go ahead and finish this off as far as that is concerned. X factor for this game and the ways in which I've seen this defense play, and I know that we're going to match up. My two X factors are Shamari Connor and Leo Chanel. These guys have to have good games if we want to be able to get the Bills' offense into difficult downs and distances, specifically against the run. But obviously, the play action pass is going to be a big piece of that. If you guys are going to get in your jumbo and heavy sets, then it's going to be Leo Chanel on the field, and it's going to be a lot of big nickel sets for Shamari Connor as well. He's got to have better eyes, especially in zone coverage. He does have a pick off of Josh Allen in his career in his rookie year, but he has struggled specifically from that slot position. He's had to have a good game, in my personal opinion, for us to be able to get Josh Allen into some difficult aspects and then try and get off the field once that does happen. Offense, I think we can get after the Bills, defense. So everybody just go ahead and have yourself a good game. Jalen Moore, don't get victimized at left tackle. Rest of the offensive line, I think we'll take care of business. Where you want to go as far as your X factor, and then I'll give my game pick. My game pick, I think 28-27 Chiefs Bills. We get a classic. No surprise, obviously. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Go ahead and give me a game pick, man. Your X factor.
So for defensively, like we've mentioned his name a couple times. I think the X factor for us is going to be Max Harrison, and just kind of like I said, this matchup is the reason why we drafted the fastest player in fastest defensive back in the draft this year. So seeing what he can do, it's only going to be a second game, so he'll still have lots to learn, but just to get him into this environment, if he can impact Xavier Worthy at all, that's going to be huge for us. And then offensively, I'll say Dalton Kincaid is going to be my X factor on defense. He's had a pretty quiet season for us so far this year, but I feel like if we can mix in some play action, the going up against Buffalo, everybody's focused on Josh Allen and James Cook, and I feel like it's easy to get guys to bite on a play action fake or expect. We see those little fake wide receiver screens, and a Dalton Kincaid is down the sideline. So, if we can get a couple of those plays, I think a big Dalton Kincaid game is going to be huge for us.
Absolutely. Funny enough, I'm sorry. No, I was going to say real quick. Funny enough, both of those plays you talked about, because we've hit the fake wide receiver screen to tight end thing. We've hit it to Travis Kelsey in week 1 for a touchdown. We've hit it to Noah Gray versus the Raiders as well. You guys, I saw that touchdown that you had to Dalton Kincaid as well. That is a feature of these offenses that like to get a little bit as far as the perimeter passing game in and try and get it out to their playmakers immediately. And then once you can be able to have the defense come up and be able to get them over the top as far as that's concerned. So yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that play, because I did like to talk about that.
Yeah, I think any way we can get Dalton Kincaid involved in this game, I feel like he's a mismatch for a lot of defenses. It's hard to cover a big guy who can catch the ball.
Move like that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
So go ahead and game prediction.
Yep.
As far as game prediction, I don't know. I feel like this is the one game of the year that it almost means more to everybody else in the every other fan base in the league, because right. We both kind of want to just lose this game so that because of the mojo of who loses the regular season wins in the playoffs. So we'd be okay with a loss this week if it meant a win in the playoffs, but either way, Bills at home. Bills are really good at home. We don't lose often in the past 2 years at home. Minus the New England Patriots, I think we had won 17 games in a row at home or something like that. So I'm gonna pick the Bills to win. I think it's going to be another close one. It's going to come down to, like it always does with these two teams, it's going to come down to a 4th and 5, and if Josh Allen can get us 7 yards, or if we can stop Patrick Mahomes from getting a 5 yards on 4th and 5 kind of thing. But I'll take the Bills. 27-24 for the Bills.
Hey, that's a good pick. I completely understand it. If we know anything about this matchup, we know that it's going to be close, and we know that
Yeah.
these are going to make some spectacular plays. They're going to have Tony Romo falling all over the booth as far as that aspect is concerned. Can't wait to hear it, man. So appreciate you for coming on. Always happy to talk with you. Everybody, please go over to check out Mafia Members Podcast as well. Obviously, I'll be back to recap everything as far as that is concerned. And look, if history is prologue, we'll be doing this again in January, man. Always good to talk to you. Hope you have a good day, man.
Right on, man. Thanks for having me on. Always a blast.